Streaming this Friday.
They're coming. Stay hidden.
Experience the 2-episode premiere.
Hey everybody!
Exclusively on...
Happy Wednesday evening, a live tutorial stream. How's everybody doing wherever you are in the wilds of the internet today? I hope that everyone has had a fantastic weekend, a fantastic Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. We are kicking off our streaming week with this little gadget here, which is typically referred to as a Bracelet Buddy, and it's actually a pretty nifty spiffy little gadget if you have bracelets with clasps. So the way that it works is so it's just basically a long stick of wire with an alligator clip at the end, and I decorated mine because why not make it pretty, and I'm going to show you how to do this pattern during our tutorial today. But what you do with your Bracelet Buddy is you clamp it onto the end of your bracelet and then you hold it in your hand, and what that allows you to do in theory, and I always have to like pull my lobster claw trigger before I bring it around, but what that allows you to do in theory is it allows you to hold that ring steady so that you can catch it pretty easily with your lobster claw clasp. Then you just unclip your Bracelet Buddy and there you go. Clasp bracelet with, in theory, a minimum of trauma. Now as far as like, you know, you can go with the most stripped, you can even do this with a paper clip, honestly. So you can go with the most stripped down version of it. It doesn't have to be pretty. Okay, this is my base for my Bracelet Buddy, which I'm going to show you guys how to make, but it does require epoxy, so I pre-made one that I'm then going to bead on stream. And I put a little dangly crystal at the end of mine because why not? But you don't have to do that either. But they do make great gifts, especially if you if you're giving bracelets with clasps to people that you know have dexterity issues. This is a really fun little you know, thing to include in with it. And yes, I do realize for anybody who was alive during that era, it also does look like a roach clip. What you use your Bracelet Buddy for in the privacy of your own home, not my business. Let's talk tools and supplies for this afternoon's, or sorry, this evening's tutorial. You're gonna need some fairly sturdy wire. So what I have here is 10 gauge bronze. That is what I am using for the base of my Bracelet Buddy. In addition to 10 gauge bronze, you're gonna need some beads that will fit onto 10 gauge bronze, and that is a taller order than you might think. These are what I used here for my sample. I'm gonna try these. The holes are just like right on the edge of, I think they're gonna fit. Okay, so they like barely fit. So I'm gonna see if I can use these or if I can alternate these two. Ooh, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna alternate these two on my project tonight. So you need beads that will fit on your 10 gauge wire, and you just need enough of them to cover not your entire 6 inches, because you're gonna need about an inch to roll over at the end. So you're gonna need about 5 inches of beads, and you can vary the length of this. All you really need is enough to kind of hold it in your hand and secure your bracelet. So I find that 5 or 6 inches is a good length for it, but you can definitely alter that depending on what you need. In addition to your beads and your 10 gauge wire, you are going to need an alligator clip, and you are going to need some 18 or 20 gauge wire. That's going to be for the embellishment. You need about 2 to 2.5 feet of 18 gauge wire. I'm using 18 gauge bronze. If you want to do an accent bead on the end of your Bracelet Buddy, you are of course going to need some kind of accent bead. So I'm going to use this big honking crystal heart. And then the one thing that I don't actually have with me is 2-part epoxy. I forgot to bring some of that over here. And that's how we're going to secure our wire into our alligator clip. So I'm just going to take 1 second, go grab some of that, and then I'll be right back. We're going to start our project. Okay, so we are back with two-part epoxy. So now we're going to go ahead and make the base for our Bracelet Buddy. So we're going to start with, again, this is about 6 inches of 10 gauge bronze wire. I'm using bronze because you need something that's sturdy. You don't want this isn't something that you need to be flexible. In fact, you don't want it to be flexible. You want it to be pretty stiff and sturdy. So 10 gauge bronze is what I've chosen. And you can see when it comes off of the coil, it's a little bit curved. We don't want it to be curved for this project. So I'm going to take my chain nose pliers, I'm just going to grab that and I'm going to straighten it out. Hi, Sophia! So the way that you straighten it out is you're just going to hold it in your pliers and pull. And what I'm doing is I'm just putting a little bit of pressure counter to the curve, and see how that gets nice and straight. And then I'm going to grab my alligator clip. And so I got alligator clips that have these little kind of prongs on the end. So I'm going to go ahead and put my 10 gauge wire in there, and then I'm going to bend those little prongs around my 10 gauge wire. Oh no! Crap. Sophia, I'm so sorry. How are you feeling? So I just bent the little prongs around my wire, and now I'm going to go ahead and take this part here and I'm going to compress that down as well. So what I'm creating now is basically the maximum amount of contact area I can have, so that my epoxy will get a really good grab on this, because this is not terribly secure. Just like, there's really no way to make this secure with just tension, so we are going to add some glue. So I'm going to take that out now that I've formed it. The reason that I formed it before I put the epoxy on it is I find, especially since this is so hard to hold, that you're just going to get goopy epoxy all over yourself, which is nobody's idea of a good time. So I've got my two-part epoxy here. It's on my super high-tech piece of scrap paper. I'm just going to mix those two together. This is epoxy 330, and it's a sorry, choking on own spit. It's a clear drying epoxy. It takes about 24 hours to fully cure, but it does give you a really, really good bond. So I'm just going to take my wire and I'm just going to roll it in my epoxy, and I'm going to throw away my epoxy, because otherwise what's going to happen is I'm going to stick my finger or my elbow in it, and then I'm going to take that epoxied and I'm going to put it back in to my alligator clip, and then if I have any spillover, then I can just wipe that off on a piece of paper, and there you go. So that is the base for my Bracelet Buddy, and then I'm just going to set that aside and let that cure for about 24 hours. So, dun da da! After 24 hours, here you go. So now my wire is firmly epoxied in there, and it's not going to go anywhere. So now is when I'm going to go ahead and cut my 18 gauge wire. And like I said, 2.5 feet should be enough. It just depends on how crazy you want to get with the wire wrapping, but I'm going to just cut a little over 2 feet, and I think that should be plenty. Now, it goes without saying, well, apparently, I can't talk. No, there are any number of ways that you can embellish this. This is only one of them. I mean, you could do a more complicated wire, wire wrapping and weaving pattern. you could just take beads and string them all on your 18 gauge wire, wrap it around your end. Like, there's, the possibilities really are just endless as far as this goes. So don't feel like you have to be limited to what I decided to do just because I decided to do it. Oh no, you can do whatever you want. Alright, so I'm cutting open both of my strands of beads just so that I'll be able to access them when the time comes. And now I'm going to take my 18 gauge wire and I'm going to anchor it onto my base that I've made. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to wrap it around here. So I'm going to cover over where I've epoxied and bent the little prongs of my alligator clip on my wire. That's going to do two things. First of all, it's going to disguise this joint, which isn't super pretty. Now, granted, the alligator clip's not super pretty either, but it's also going to provide just like one more layer of support there. So I'm just going to hold my wire across my base and I'm just going to start wrapping, starting at the base of that joint and just coiling all the way up until I reach the top of where those prongs are. Try not to let your wires overlap like I just did. They want to be next to each other, not on top of each other. Okay, and once I've reached the top of that, now I can start adding my beads. So let's see, let's start with the short one. Alright, so we're going to slide the bead down, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to take our wire around the bead and then around the base so that I've got a full circle around my base. So it goes around the outside and then around the core wire here. Now I'm going to put on another bead. And then I'm going to take my wire around that bead. So notice the first time I wrapped from front to back, now I'm wrapping from back to front. Once around my base. Now my next bead. And again, around the outside of my bead and then around my base, front to back. And I'm only defining front essentially, or top, as the side that's facing me versus the side that's facing the work surface. There's really not a defined top on this. Also, it will rotate around the base, so you don't have to worry too much about keeping it in line with your alligator clip. That's something that you can just kind of tweak at the end if you need to. So again, front to back, around. Okay, my wire is trying to murder my light. That's not exciting. Okay, so now we got a big bead. And around the outside of that big bead, and then wrap around our core wire, and then little bead, alright, around. So it's a pretty simple wrapping pattern, as you can see. Again, you could definitely do something more complicated if you wanted to. I think this one is kind of fun. If you wanted wire on both sides of your beads, what you would do is when you get to the top of this, you come back down, wrapping on the other sides. The only downside there is these joints in between tend to get a little bit clunky and bulky when you do that. Now, you don't have to necessarily use 18 gauge wire for this. You can use something smaller like a 20 gauge. You know, the idea here is we want something that's pretty sturdy. So just around the outside and then our front to back. And around the outside and back to front. So we want to make something that's fairly sturdy, and the 18 gauge wire definitely helps with that. It helps, you know, kind of reinforce and make it a very kind of sturdy construction. But again, if you wanted to do something more intricate, don't feel like you can't move to a smaller gauge wire, because there definitely are limitations with something as thick as an 18 gauge, just as far as, you know, sometimes you just literally can't get it to move, or you can't get it to turn in a circle the way you want it to. That one was back to front, like so. If you find your beads are getting a little bit more spaced out than you would like, you can just kind of shove them down towards each other to get rid of that space. Alright, and so I'm going to keep doing this, and I'm almost done. Talking and doing this sometimes it's difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go until I get to about an inch or so from the end. Just because of my pattern here, I think what I'm going to do is another small bead, large bead, and I'm going to end on a small bead, because that's what I started on down here. Now, it's not going to leave me quite as much as I would like at the end, but do a little bit of creative shoving, and I think okay. Okay, so when I get to the end, when I've put on all my beads, I'm just going to anchor off with about 3 wraps. And so I did a little over 2 feet of wire on this, and I still have a solid foot left, so I'm going to go with, yeah, 2 feet is definitely a safe amount of wire. How many beads you actually are going to use is just going to depend on the size of your beads. I used a grand total of 2, 4, 6, 8, 15. On this project, on my prototype, I think I used 13 because they're a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to tie these off quickly, because otherwise Heather's going to have to deal with them during the sale. So now that I've anchored my wires off, I'm going to take my cutters and I'm going to cut my ends flush, and then I'm going to get rid of my pokey stabbies. Now while I'm doing this tying off of my bead strands, I want to remind you all that we have a live merchandise sale that is coming up at 7:30 this evening, and that sale is going to be run and hosted by Heather and Diane, as I have a thing that I have to go do immediately after this stream. So come on out if you don't mind, support Heather and Diane. There's going to be more cool new merchandise for you to purchase this evening. Of course, that being the whole point of the live merchandise sale is to sell you merchandise, but mostly it's Heather's first sale that she is actually running as the primary showrunner. So so come on out and support Heather. And I didn't just drop beads all over. I don't know what y'all are talking about. But yeah, so come on out and support Heather and Diane and buy some cool stuff this evening. That's going to be at 7:30. There was, for just a little while there, a graphic up that said the sale was starting at 6, and that was my bad, because that's not correct information. I fixed it, but to anybody who saw it, sorry about that. Okay, so now I've done my anchoring on, and I'm going to go ahead and trim my ends. I just want to trim them as close as possible to my coils. Like so, and then once again, pokey stabbies, like you can see that kind of end that's poking out, that needs to go down. And same for the end. And I'm going to just shove all of these kind of down. All right, so now comes the part where we get to pound on things. So I'm gonna need my bench block and my chasing hammer, and what I'm gonna do, hopefully without bashing my fingers, is I'm gonna flatten out this last little end bit, hi Corvus, of my wire. Okay, so it's gonna get loud for a minute here on the Beading Dreams stream. If you need to turn me down, you can go for that right now. So I just want to make a nice little kind of flat paddle. It's a Bracelet Buddy, Corvus. I'll show you again how it works at the end of the stream. And then I'm going to take my round nose pliers, hi Smee, and I'm just going to bend that piece that I hammered over to make a loop. Ah! Ow.
You okay?
And I'm fine. My pliers are less fine.
Oh no!
Yeah. Do you have a pair of round nose pliers over there?
No, but I can get one. I'm gonna give you a store pair just in case.
Good plan. Very good plan, Heather. I was like, woman, you're not touching my pliers after you just did that.
No, thank you.
Oh, by the way, Corvus, I got a burb. I got a burb for next, thank you, for next freeform. Yeah, the tool is definitely down. The tool is officially dead. D-E-D dead. So anyway, continuing on with what I was doing when I broke my pliers, I'm just going to bend this end around to make a loop, and it's a pain in the ass to bend it because this wire is thick and hefty. So I just want to make sure that it's completely closed, which it's not right now. So I'm going to take my flat nose and just sort of compress that up and in to get a nice closure. And I'm going to bring this over here because I have a feeling if I do it on camera that I'm going to wind up breaking something, possibly my own flesh, which is never good.
No, we've already broken enough.
Yes, it's true.
There was a sacrifice.
There was a sacrifice. It wasn't a flesh sacrifice. It was a tool sacrifice. But we did have a sacrifice today. Okay, so now I've got that bended is a word officially now. Bended over. And I need to make sure that that pokey stabby is pressed down as well. Alright, and now I'm just going to add my little accent. So I'm going to use a little bit of my 18 gauge wire. I could also use a head pin. On this one, I actually did a top drilled wire wrap. I would not recommend doing that with the 18 gauge wire, which is why I'm doing a center drilled wire wrap for this one. So this is my 18 gauge wire. Once again, you could use a smaller gauge of wire for this. I'm going to take my 18 gauge and I'm just going to use my round nose pliers to bend a little bit of a circle on the bottom. It's kind of just like a mini little eye pin. And I'm going to drop my sparkly heart bead. Fancy dagger. Not a fancy dagger handle, Corvus. I will show you what it does in a minute. Corvus is just really all with the murdery vibes tonight.
Well, I mean, she's free now, so...
It's true. There's so much murder now that she has time for. Everybody look out.
I know.
Okay, and then I'm going to do a basic wire wrapped loop on top of this. So I'm going to hold my pliers so that they are touching the top of my heart, and I'm going to push my wire away from me. Rotate my pliers, bring it back up over the top towards. Rotate again and underneath to make my lady with a scarf. My lady with a scarf is going to get linked around this loop at the end of my Bracelet Buddy. And then I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers. I'm going to hold across that loop and I'm going to wrap. Okay, so I'm just going to start at the base of that loop and I'm going to wrap down until I hit my bead. Like so. And then we're going to trim And once again, we need to make sure that there are no pokey stabbies at all. There we go. And that is our Bracelet Buddy. Super easy. The thing that takes the longest is literally waiting for the glue to dry. Now, since Corvus was not here for the demonstration, what does this actually do? What is its intended purpose? Whatever else you do with it on your own time. Like I said, not my problem. Not if you stab people with it. We do not endorse that on the Beading Dream stream. If you're using it to smoke anything that is legal or not legal in the state in which you live, again, all on you. But the intended purpose of this is to help you put on bracelets. It's actually a pretty nifty little gadget. You take the alligator clip and you clip it onto your bracelet, and then you hold the Bracelet Buddy in your hand, pull back the trigger on your lobster claw, and then bring your bracelet around. And what your Bracelet Buddy does is it allows you to, well, you know, as long as you don't lose your grip on it, but it allows you to hold that ring in place so that you can catch it fairly easily with your lobster claw. Let your Bracelet Buddy go, and there you go. You've got a bracelet with a clasp on your wrist with hopefully a minimum of trauma. And once again, once again, super fun gift. As you can see, incredibly easy to make and very economical as well. You know, your main... No, Sophia, it's not a roach clip.
Not in Texas yet.
Not in Texas yet.
Maybe someday.
So, anyway, fun, easy gift. Your main challenges in this project are, you know, the time it takes just for the epoxy to cure, and then finding beads that will actually fit on 10 gauge wire. That's a toughie, but there's a lot of metal beads out there, incidentally, some that happen to be sold by Beading Dreams, that will work great for this project. So if anybody wants to see those on a future sales stream, just let us know. But for now, I give up.
The wheels are all the way off.
Yeah, the wheels are all the way off. Good luck, Heather. Alright, so that's it for me tonight with our Bracelet Buddy project. Seriously, it is a really fun and useful, like all roach clip jokes aside, it is a really fun project and useful thing to have around the house. So I am going to get offline. I'm going to get everything prepped for the sale, which will be hosted, what did I just do? Which will be hosted by Heather and Diane. The conductor's about to jump off the train and hand it off to someone else. So, like I said, good luck, Heather. So everyone have a great night from me. Don't forget, we will be back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream. Heather and Diane will. At 7:30 with our live merchandise sale. We've got lots of fun stuff for you tonight, so don't miss out, you know, tune in to support Heather and Diane on their first solo sale. If you're not going to make it for the sale, don't forget we will also be back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, tomorrow at noon with this project. This is just a fun little right angle weave ring, and it's, again, another really simple, easy project. Very fun and a good stash buster because you don't need more than 1 or 2 of any particular kind of bead. They just all need to be the same size. So everyone have a great night, and a large discount. You're gonna have to see if you can talk Heather into that. She has full discretionary powers. So we'll so alright, so everyone have a great night. And I will see you all back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, tomorrow at noon with that right angle weave bracelet project. And Heather, hopefully we'll see most of you all in about 40 minutes for the live merchandise sale. She says she better, so please show up, support, and hey, do some shopping. All right, so I will see y'all tomorrow. Heather will see y'all in 40 minutes. Everyone take care. Bye.
The key to hunting Jedi is patience.
Where is he?
You can't run, Obi-Wan! You can't escape him!
Obi-Wan Kenobi 2-episode premiere, streaming this Friday, only on Disney+.
I told you it's game over. Only like you and your suburb. Had to cut you off, now I don't give a fuck about you. Yo, shawty wanna kiss, shawty make a wish. Put it on a star, under the moonlight, in my car. How do you feel so close yet so far? And you make it hard to start again without falling apart. It's like my heart's in the pen. Draw the puzzle pieces, draw the puzzle pieces. I got bags of Reese's Pieces. I got bitches, they don't even know their ABCs. I got versatility, it's missing. I'm Morgan Freeman, got a stick hole in pocket, cause it's Japanese and it take off your knees. I like when things are simple. Does it have to be so hard? I like when your nose crinkles cause your glasses are too large. So why don't you just hop up in my car? Through my moon roof we can look up at the stars. Cause you're my strawberry, my sweet. Sprinkle with seeds. Pick from the stem but I savor the sweet. You were my little lollipop, now you taste weird to me. I told you it's game over. Only like you and your suburb. Had to cut you off, now I don't give a fuck about you.
She my B, I call her A. I told my ex get out the way. I asked myself like why I get so lucky staring at her face on my way home. Get distracted.